Today I betroth my daughter Miroslava to the most distinguished knight of our land, Sir Igor!
So we are talking about the 2015 Russian fantasy movie On-DRAKON. Now, if you're in the UK or maybe the US, you may know this movie as I Am Dragon. Now, it's been described in the top here as Game of Thrones meets Beauty and the Beast. Game of Thrones, I guess, because it's got a dragon and it's kind of a medieval fantasy. But Beauty and the Beast, yes, this film definitely can be compared to Beauty and the Beast, and not always in a good way. So let's talk about the plot here. Essentially, it takes place in a kind of medieval fantasy environment, and this village has been kind of attacked time and time after by these dragons. So they kind of stave them off by sacrificing a maiden or two to appease the dragons. And at one point during a bunch of exposition at the beginning of the film, we're told that there was a dragon slayer that chased after his true love and slayed the dragon, and ever since then the dragons haven't touched this village. Now, cut to a good few many years later, the ritual that they used to sacrifice these maidens has now been kind of turned into a wedding ceremony, and this one girl called Mira, who is the kind of the town beauty and all of that, is now set to marry in an arranged marriage the descendant of the original dragon slayer, this guy called Igor. However, in this ceremony, a dragon decides he's going to kind of like pick up his old habit, swoops down and kidnaps Mira, takes her back to his island, and there we find out that he's actually not a dragon all the time. He can kind of transmorph into a hunky guy who is roughly the same age as this girl and who never wears a shirt. So, and obviously a kind of budding romance takes place there. So this film is so reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast. So there's one subtle difference, really. The only difference between this and Beauty and the Beast is the fact that when the guy turns into a dragon, he doesn't really have control over it. So it's almost like Jekyll and Hyde in that respect. So it's two sort of separate personalities. He has kind of some limited control. I guess you would say it's a bit like the Hulk in a way. He has a very limited kind of control over what he's kind of doing. So it's almost like two separate entities, unlike Beauty and the Beast, where the mind of the guy is still the same. So that's the only difference. Now, this is apparently based on a novel called Ritual, but my first critique here is it's so reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast. I mean, I would suffice to say this is a direct rip-off of Beauty and the Beast, particularly the Disney one. I mean, we even have this kind of Gaston-style character, Igor, who is this kind of the guy that she was meant to marry. You know, who's this great-looking guy, all of that, but he seems like he maybe have more selfish motives. And then we've got this. Even the dragon has this kind of like furry kind of pet that is like one of the kind of like the things that you have in the castle, like the Lumiere and all that sort of thing. He has this kind of, I don't know what, raccoon or something that is basically, I thought was like another person that had maybe been changed, but it's just like a super intelligent animal. So reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast. I cannot believe this film hasn't been sued. I really can't. Second thing I would say is this film has obviously two ways you can watch it. So I got the UK DVD, and it gives you the option of either listening to the dubbed version or reading the subtitles. Now, I watched the dubbed version, and I've got to say the voice acting is pretty horrible. So the subbed version might be a lot better, but I can't really comment on it, to be honest, because I only watched the dubbed one. But the girl who kind of plays Mira, or the girl who dubs her at least, is horrible. Sounds like a kind of really kind of like Valley Girl type, and kind of like uses contemporary language, really overemphasizes kind of like movement as well. So she might be turning the page of a book, she's like ooh, and kind of really overdoes the kind of the voice acting a little bit. So Horrible voice acting from her and a couple of the other kind of like smaller cast members as well. The guy's not so bad, but so horrible kind of voice acting, and also this really favours style over intelligence. I'm just going to say it. If you're looking for things that kind of make sense rather than just kind of look pretty, look elsewhere. Just for a couple of like small examples, I mean, the island that the dragon lives on, that he takes this kind of Mira to, is actually the skeleton of like a huge, gigantic, kaiju-sized dragon. So it's basically this massive skeleton that's kind of just dropped in the sea. Yet there's a kind of waterfall that kind of is running out of its eye socket, and thinking, where's the water coming from? It's fresh water that's coming out there. They're in the middle of the sea. There's clearly not a spring. It's just a skeleton in the ocean. Where's the water coming from? And there's one section where he's like, oh, I'll throw all these rose petals in the air, and so where have they come from? And stuff like that. So there's stuff that is just done because it looks cool, or it looks very fantasy and kind of romantic and all of that. But when you think about it, thinking that doesn't make sense. There's no basis in logic for what's just happened. So that's my critiques. Good stuff, I gotta say. Even though that last critique, it looks visually fantastic. It really does. It's a beautiful film, and some of the kind of the effects here, like the waterfalls, the kind of the cinematography, the scenery, is really stunning. I mean, it absolutely looks beautiful. And I've got to say, you might have seen some of these kind of like low-budget dragon movies, like Dragon Crusaders and stuff like that. They look really crap and kind of have shitty-ass CGI monsters. This looks pretty darn good. I mean, it's pretty much as good as Game of Thrones on TV in regards to the kind of the dragon effects and stuff like that. Really, really good. I mean, like I said, I really did like the kind of the idea they're kind of living in this huge skeleton and stuff like that, and that looked really good. But also just the kind of the set dressings of this kind of village and stuff, very reminiscent of the TV show Vikings. So that was all. It looked absolutely fantastic. And I would say, if you are a fan of kind of romantic fantasy, this will tick all of those right boxes. I mean, it is an absolute kind of film. If you read those kind of Harlequin romance novels, you're going to love this film, because it really does. This is a date movie rather than an action movie. I will point out, there is no action scenes in this film. Not one action scene. There's not one fight. Nothing. You might have a dragon swoop down and pick something up. There is zero action in here, which I think maybe was a bit of a mistake. Overall, though, like I said, visually fantastic. From what I can tell, certainly the actual physical acting looked pretty good. The attractive cast. If you're a bit of, I think if you're a you like your pretty boys, you're a lady and you like your pretty boys or otherwise. The guy's constantly got his shirt off. I didn't understand why there was a kind of like this seemingly sentient animal on the island. I thought it was someone that had been transformed into an animal, but apparently no. Who knows? But anyway, it's great to look at. If you are a romantic at heart, you're gonna like this one. Had a few issues with it, I've got to say. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. If you've seen it, what did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.